Okay, so this is what I got from analyzing the best current pro Cypher players on Haven, found from BLR from the last 30 days after the duelist patch. And these are the exact players if you're curious. Fnatic, DRX, and Team Heretics are the teams. So you're basically always going to be on C. This is the pistol thing you're going to do. Every VOD I watched, they've actually lost their pistol. They had a C trip. So the one round they it was kind of evenish more. They had the middle trip. I also checked I kept looking, so I went to a Chinese team that also had a good Cypher, not as good as the other three though. But that's what they did too, and they actually won their pistol. And I don't know the exact camera, but you're gonna have a camera like this, kinda. And yeah, I'll spot some of that, and also see garage. You don't want to do a high camera every single round though, because they'll know and start shooting that. But you know, that's the pistol thing you're gonna do. When you're playing C, you're gonna tend to always play on this side, and you're gonna always throw a cage over here. You know, in team play, like our Omen's gonna always smoke that, but you do want to still have a cage there. And every pro team I watched, they kept throwing their cage there too anyways, even though their Omen always smoked it, especially Fnatic. Like, there's three reasons. One could just be simple miscommunication, but the bigger ones is if your smoke player dies, you still want a cage over there. And you don't want the enemy team to know you're on the right side by throwing a cage over here. So you want to throw that pre-round just in case. The second big reason is you could put the cage up before the smoke lands, in case the smoke is a little bit late. But also you can have the cage up and you can tell if anyone pushes into your smoke. Because it's really common, I noticed, for all these Cypher players to walk in the open smoke right here. They try to get a pick from their trips, of course, but also if one of the enemy team walks in the trip itself where they plant the bomb, which they spam there. It's not really common. But let's go on to C. Oh, frick. Oh. Okay, well, after losing my mind for losing everything I did everything on memories, so I wouldn't be surprised if I forgot some stuff, especially some specific trips. But this is what I remember that I tried to redo everything with. I also forgot the text boxes. Okay, so you're gonna be on C like 10, 11 rounds of the 12 you're playing defense. So you're basically always on C every single round. The only time you're not playing C is when your team is pushing C. That is the only time you're playing A or B. Probably A though. But you could go B if their team really loves B and dislikes A for whatever reason. But so again, you always want this cage. Now the second cage is flexible. You don't always need to use your second cage if they really dislike C, but at least towards the start of defense, I would always throw your second cage, just in case if they push C. You want to throw this cage pre-round. This is a more common cage they usually do. And the next very common one is the one-way right here. You're gonna have to look up the Cypher video for that one, because I do not know the lineup. And you could kind of spot their feet from over here when you crouch. Yeah, actually maybe it's a higher one-way, maybe it's this thing.
Cage triggered.
Yeah, I think that's the one you're supposed to do, definitely, yeah. So that's the one-way cage you're supposed to find. And with that one-way cage, you're doing it off the camera basically, so once they walk up more, you activate the cage. I think you do want the camera a bit more high up, despite what I said earlier. That way, they can really only see your feet. But you gotta be careful of, again, like, people over there. They're just gonna start shooting the camera a lot. Yeah. So they usually have their camera somewhere around this section. Like right there to theirs. I don't remember the exact spot, but 'cause they never really showed it. But you don't want it too close to this side of the wall, because it makes it way easier for these people to spot your camera. It's way in the open. So do note that. One other thing you gotta note about the one-way is you don't want to do the one-way when their team does not do garage split or go into garage a lot, because that means if they're gonna go C, they're just gonna smoke that off anyways, and now you have a useless cage. So in that scenario, just wanna cage that. Sometimes they also cage over here. This is a less common cage though, but still a cage they do. So what it looks like is that is this type of cage. When they do this cage, the more common reason they do this cage is because they kind of start garage. They don't start garage, but they notice their team really doesn't like C, so they go into garage a lot more. And this cage is kind of useful on retakes because you can put it up like that and push out and show. But you know, you can still play. You can still use that cage while playing on site over here. So this is all the trips that I remember, because again I lost all of my freaking progress, so everything's gone. This is just off of my memory, but all the trips are like that. They always have one info trip for C, like every single time. They have like that kinda, and sometimes they did this diagonal info trip instead, but more commonly this one. But they always have two trips for C site, always two. The only time they trip garage or B, especially garage, they basically never trip garage. But when they do trip garage, they always have a camera on B site. And when you do the camera, I think this is a better camera. That you have like a spot here. You want to throw it higher if you can. That way you can kind of see that too. But this will get info for if there's anyone B main. And the lurk spot. But another common camera for B site is that type of camera. That way you can actually see more into A link, but you don't have an info spot for grass anymore. And the last camera is a spot if they kind of start B. They do the info camera like that. When they trip garage too, not garage, when they trip B site against that trip, they throw on that box. They kind of play garage more. At least tend to lean garage after starting C for a bit. And these are kind of what the rotates look like. He never goes through spawn. Well, honestly, all the pro players never go through spawn because it's a little bit slower, but you also want to kind of lean in the control of the map. So like as you rotate B, the B player rotates A, you know? And this is kind of what happens too when you're rotating. If it's not a hard hit, you're gonna get off C, or you're gonna go into garage. So I forgot this, like, I had this in my freaking text box earlier, but again I lost everything. The reason why the teams don't trip garage is your camera sees into garage from C site. It spots the garage guy. And as a Cypher, you know, you're almost always on your camera. And now you're just spotting like that. That way they could see into C site. And when their team's leaning A, you guys are rotating your positions, you're gonna basically be playing garage a lot. You're gonna walk into it. And you could also go from this side too. Sometimes you might want to push out. But your job is basically to fight the lurker if the lurker's there. Or to look for that lurker. And yeah. I had more, but again, I lost everything, so I'm just trying to say stuff off of memory. For a site, you're probably only gonna play it once or twice, but you're gonna essentially play heaven or site, your preference really. If they have a big goal, probably play heaven. But one thing I noticed that the teams did was they tried to put a trip here, especially Team Heretics, but every time they put a trip there, they just didn't do anything with it. They just gave it up. So maybe more for fast info, but I see in a rank people do that trip, throw cage here, fight that. But you're gonna have both your cages over here pre-round. Or I would just do one cage maybe, and if you know they're there, then throw the second cage. But you're always gonna have an info trip here. And then the second trip basically goes on the box somewhere. You can have it a bit more planter side or push side. This is a less common trip, a lot less more common, but you kind of have a middle trip right there. And your cameras are 2 spots. You I forgot to pick it up, but you put a camera like over here to have info spotter, or you have your camera somewhere high up there that you throw from heaven. Those are the cameras they did.
If they try something,
and whenever you rotate off A, you want to always pick up your non-info trip. And what I mean by non-info is the one not right there. If you have a trip there still, then you could pick that one up though. But you just want to put a trip over here. I don't know why they don't trip here instead, but that's where they put their trip. You could do this trip too if you think it's better, so you're the Cypher player. Also, when they do play A, they only have one trip at the start, and they tried to put this trip here. If there's people already pushing, or you know they're going to lobby, or they use Zito on you, then you don't even put that trip, or you pick the trip back up after you place it down right away. And then you put the second trip somewhere. And you're just playing backside. If you get overwhelmed, then try to run away. But since you don't have a cage right here, you kind of have to come in. Ideally, you have your team rotate by done. And you should have your team rotate by done. But yeah. And again, when you're rotating from A, go through B site, go through C site. You're anchor for both sites. You're going to be rotating more late. And you're also trying to look for the lurker at the same time as you're rotating. Now, for B site, you're probably never gonna do this, but if their team really loves B, then you could do a trip here. I know there's a diagonal trip somewhere. I saw it. Alright, but yeah, there's a diagonal trip somewhere. Might have been that one. And you could throw. Ideally, you find a lineup for this spot. I think that's the best cage, especially with how Jet and stuff dashes up there a lot. That cage is pretty good. For this spot though, it's too wide right here, so you gotta throw your cage like that. And your trip goes over here. And for these type of trips, you don't want to put your trip right there. You gotta walk into it too much, so you want to have it right in the middle-ish. And you're just playing from back here with the camera in this area. And you know, just play like how Cypher plays.
Triggered. Cage triggered.
Now for if you really think they're hard A, or maybe we could do it on an eco round. Or they really dislike C, you know, like they never go C ever. Then you could do this pink type of strategy. They only did this once in a pro game. But you have 2 info trips. And as soon as the round starts, you just put your camera over here. Check your camera right away. If no one's there, then you can just start rotating off. Probably play like garage or B side. You can just lean really heavy on A in that type of scenario. And this is kind of like your play zones. So you're almost always gonna be on that right side. So the yellow's like where you always really play hard. Blue's where you play like not at the start really, but once they start pushing on perhaps, or more mid-round once you're rotating more often, because you don't really want to go into this cubby since it's kind of dangerous crossing into there. But the green area is like where you play once you rotate off C, because they're more A, B, and you know they're not really C. So you're basically playing garage again. And the red area is where you're playing once they push like B or A and actually planning ish the bomb. For B site, whenever you do that, try to always clear garage. And you never go heaven, you're just always going below for A site. They kind of, there isn't really a set particular path that they went, like a left or right, they didn't do that. So just your discretion really. For A site, green is where you're starting at early, and yellow is where you're playing, heaven or hell, depends. And the red's like if you got overwhelmed or you had to like, or you know, they're hard pushing C, something like that. And whenever you're going C2, you wanna always clear garage if you can, if it's possible. You don't necessarily need to retake from here, but try to clear garage if you can. And one last thing I have to note is that if a lurker, cause you're anchoring, if there's like a lurker that manages to get past, and you know that for sure, like they're in our side of the map, but it's just a lurker, not their whole team. One thing the pro team did, they only did this one round, but it was a really good idea. Like, you wanna, whenever you're getting crunched, you wanna pick a side to fight. So one thing you can do is push cubby, and you're holding the people rotating on the enemy team through C main. That's probably where they're gonna come from. If there's a lurker like that, unless they go B side, but if they go C side, you're gonna go through that area. You wanna just leave your trips and try to get into this cubby spot if you know they're not C main yet. You could probably get at least one pick. More useful on situations where it's like 2v2 and whatnot. But in general though, you don't want to ever push into the cubby because you're a Cypher. Like, you're trying to play with your trips. And by going to the cubby, you're pushing past your trips. So, unless if it's that type of situation, don't try to flank C main. Just leave your trips there and play garage instead. That's the bigger reason why you're playing garage a lot mid-round. Is because you have the trips here, so you're not pushing C main. You're pushing and staying in garage, basically. So that's all I remember. I'm sure there's stuff I forgot, because again, I lost literally all my progress and notes I made. So that's it.